Marino's joining us up here in the booth. Fly ball, left field, hit well, going back is Schneider. Use the whole field. Gone! 3-run home run, Kyle Schwarber. Fly ball, deep to right field. Forget about that one. It is gone into the second deck. It's his second home run of the game.
This is the Baseball Tonight podcast for Monday, August 10th, 2026, presented by La Quinta by Wyndham. I'm Buster Olney, working from my home in Montana. Taylor Schwenk is working from his home in the Schwenk Studios in Connecticut. Today, we'll be talking with 21-year veteran Rich Hill, who has thoughts about the Red Sox and their amazing streak recently, the Dodger injuries and how the Dodgers will handle their business going forward, Shohei Ohtani, and he's got a bit of a surprise about his own career. But first, a few highlights from the weekend. On Sunday, the Diamondbacks took the series from the Dodgers 2 out of 3. Ketel Marte did some damage.
Slams it to left. Marte, goodbye. Marte in his last 70 plate appearances as a right-hand batter has hit 9 home runs. That's number 20 on the year.
The Braves salvaged the final game of their great series in Yankee Stadium. Matt Olson hit another home run.
Right field, on the run is Jones, and that ball's gone. A bullet into the seats and right by Matt Olson.
The San Diego Padres just keep on coming. On Sunday was Fernando Tatis Jr. who had the big swing.
2 on, 2 out, the 2-1. High fly ball, deep left field, way back there. An inferno off of Tatis's bat, and it's 4-2.
Jacob Misiorowski, right now the best pitcher on the planet, racked up his 200th strikeout of the 2026 season.
And a little half swing, he goes upstairs with a fastball. Misiorowski with his 5th K, number 200 on the year.
The Phillies walked off the Toronto Blue Jays in a game in which Kyle Schwarber hit 2 homers. It was a really important win for the Phillies, who right now are fighting for a playoff spot in the National League. And a couple of other notes. At the end of last week, Mike Krukow, the longtime announcer for the San Francisco Giants, announced that he will retire at the end of the season. We're going to be talking more about that in the days ahead. And Tommy John, the longtime pitcher, announced on Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium in a letter to fans and a letter to the organization his goodbye. He's had some health concerns of late, so it was a moving letter from Tommy John to those who've supported him throughout his career. Let's get to it. Today's check-in is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. And today we check in with Rich Hill, who pitched 21 years in the big leagues, including last season at age 45. Just double-checking, Rich, there's not going to be another one? Is there a comeback somewhere?
There could be. There definitely could be. I haven't officially retired, so I know I go back to, hey, you can only do this for so long, and if you feel like you can maybe. Taylor Rogers up in Toronto has given me hope to come back as a submariner. So,
Have you seriously? Are you still throwing?
I'm still throwing. Yeah, I've this is something that could be a little bit more of a ramp up as the next couple of years come around, as far as looking forward to maybe age 48 and pitching. And that is serious. I'm not, I know it.
I'm surprised. I didn't know. You're going submarine, huh?
Well, this is a work in progress. 46 currently. Next year we'll see how the temperature of the water is, and being able to kind of navigate those areas getting into the next season of potentially being a service to a team. You know what? I don't know. If it does, great. If it doesn't, I don't have to ask the question, what if?
Okay. So what's your regimen? Like, how are you doing this?
Right now, just running. Okay. So then it's going to continue to kind of build up over the off season and get on a throwing program again, get back into the gym and continue to keep, working and not getting back to where I was, but trying to find a new spot or a new normal of where I can help a team out of the bullpen or possibly start. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to come around, but certainly don't want to put myself in a position where it's like, yeah, that's it, I'm done. That's the best way I can answer it.
Well, that's exciting. I saw you in your golf shirt when you first signed on, and I thought, okay, he's officially retired now. But no, you're making it clear you are not officially retired. So that's really cool. A team near where you lived most of your life, the Boston Red Sox. I think the turnaround that we've seen this year is maybe the most incredible turnaround in baseball history. Because I said on SportsCenter this weekend that if you're a Red Sox fan and you woke up on June 25th, you thought you might have the worst, you were rooting for the worst team in baseball. They ranked 30th out of 30 teams in runs scored. They were 29th in home runs. And of course, since then,
Yeah.
they're first or second in runs scored. They're first in ERA, and they've got the third best record in the American League. You see this team play. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, the one thing is the 14-game winning streak in July was certainly a huge boost for everybody. Is saying, okay, now this team is starting to pull things together. The pitching has always been there, and the defense has always been there. I think with Ranger Suarez, Sonny Gray, Peyton Tolley, and now Bennett, obviously trading early away, I thought, in my opinion, was a mistake, just because where are you going to be able to find left-handed upper rotation pitching and a guy that you had to, bring a 18-wheeler into New York with his fortitude there to go and pitch in Yankee Stadium, in the playoffs, and that was his debut. That's pretty impressive. But I think with the other side of it, looking at how they've been able to change their approach offensively. And I've seen it, going from the drive line 0-2, swing out of your shoes. Everything's going to be exit velo, launch angle, continue to keep taking that approach. And I don't know what's changed in the front office as far as, moving some of the guys around that maybe had the influence on some of the players being able to not stay in that situational hitting, or what made them really good approach. As some of the guys that, like Caleb Durbin, for example, like watching him in the beginning part of the year, and then now seeing the way he is actually taking the ball up the middle and going the other way, or taking what the game is showing giving him, and he's taking that and being the player that he was in Milwaukee, I think is really cool. But a lot of it too is just seeing how they're, sacrificing themselves, bunting runners over or bunting for hits. And again, the situational hitting that's been coming around, especially we saw it out in LA, we saw it in Oakland last week. And as of recently this week, continues
The White
to keep
Sox
going.
game, the crazy White Sox game on Thursday night.
That was the game. I was at that game. So it was the first game that I got to go to. Was invited by Duke Castiglione. Joe Castiglione, myself, drove in with my son Bryce, and that was the first game that I'd been to, since the semi-retirement, going back to a major league game, and it just happened to be, the longest. Joe was telling me, he said, this is the longest game in pitch clock era for the Red Sox. So I thought that was pretty cool. But it never
that was
ended.
cool. And
So-
you mentioned him. I was gonna. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think when you're like Ranger Suarez, Sonny Gray, Peyton Tolley, and Bennett, these guys, not, in that order, but especially Sonny Gray and Ranger Suarez, where you're seeing these guys kind of lead by example, and also they're going into this, we hope, postseason, and those are their two guys that have the most postseason experience in the rotation. But again, this kind of like is what is going to matter the most going into the postseason, is that postseason experience, and also somebody that the players can look at and kind of find that calmness when everything is going, not awry, but when the postseason starts. Because once that starts and you're going into it without any experience, it's almost like, when you haven't eaten in a couple of days and everything's there in front of you, you get a little nervous and you want to eat everything, and guys want to work out more. They want to I got to train harder, or the last second push to go out there because this will make the difference when I go out and play in the postseason, when in fact it's going to crush your energy and push you in the other direction. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because I think
totally.
because I think when my experience in the postseason and the years that I was fortunate enough to play and start in the postseason, all hands are on deck, but it does come down to the experience factor and having guys around that you can look at or ask questions uh, to calm those waters when you need it most.
So I want to ask you, you mentioned him a couple times. Caleb Durbin to me is such a fascinating player because early in the year, I definitely went and bought right into the stereotype of a guy going from a small market to a big market. Like he is grinding his bat handle. He was trying so hard. It was clear. Like he was just trying so hard, and the team's going badly. And I thought, oh boy, it just might not necessarily be a fit. For him to dig out the way that he has, from the perspective of someone who didn't play the game, wildly impressed.
Yeah.
In Boston, to dig himself out to where now, the offense is matching the defense.
Yeah, I wonder how much, Wilson Contreras has had an influence on him with his experience and just struggles that he's gone through, whether that was in Chicago or in St. Louis, and being able to have that experience to pass on to Caleb and just tell him about, the consistency of the routine and or trying to find out whatever you need to do to be able to get back on track, i.e., possibly outside influences, which of coaches that are could be potentially helping Caleb throughout this swing change that he was making coming in, and now getting back to who he was when he was with the Milwaukee Brewers. So I definitely feel that there was something there, and again, it goes back to just the approaches that these guys were taking. It was the same approach 0-0 as it was 0-2 to 3 to whatever the count was. It was the same approach. Everything was about eggs, and I get it. I understand where we're in that day of age, and we're fully immersed in it in the analytical world. But at the same time, when we're looking at teams like Tampa Bay, like the Milwaukee Brewers, and now the Boston Red Sox, who are convincingly playing that same type of baseball, are winning. And I think that has a huge effect on the buy-in process of guys having success by seeing that it is working. And also, I think that's why the American League is so bad this year, because so many teams are buying into this process, and I don't see it as something that is a one size fits all, in my opinion. So.
There's a great statistic that our friend Sarah Langs dug out over the weekend that the Red Sox, of course, at one point on that morning of June 25th, they were 14 games under 500, and they went to 13 games over 500 in 44 days. That is by far the fastest turnaround. The next closest, the 1914 Boston Braves, the Miracle Braves, who did it in 59 days to make that kind of turnaround. So to give some context for what the Red Sox have been able to do. I wanted to ask you about the Dodgers, because you know that clubhouse, you know that team, you know that what they're dealing with. They just went through the 7-game losing streak that they ended on Saturday night. What's your sense of what goes on with a team like that? Because I know from covering the Yankees in the late 90s, at some point there would be players who go, okay, enough of that, let's go.
Yeah, I think that, through the years and being kind of, I guess, if you want to say, in the inception of where the Dodgers are right now and being part of those teams that were the foundational groups that kind of set the tone for what was going to be continuously coming into the locker room as far as players. Andrew Friedman he set the tone then, and they have a particular player that they're trying to get to bring into the locker room that will fit in with the group in a sense, but also is somebody who loves the game, will continuously show up every single day, no matter what the outcome was the day before, and get back to work. And that's the consistency that they're looking for in guys that they're taking for, whether that's Skubal, bringing him in, going and signing Freddie Freeman a couple years ago, and of course, with Shohei
Mookie.
Ohtani.
Yeah.
Mookie, yeah, they just know that, and obviously we're mentioning some of the biggest names in baseball, but then when you have, the Chris Taylors a few years ago, Max Muncy, who's still with the team, Kike Hernandez, everybody has a role and everybody brings in a different aspect to that group. But really, it comes down to each and every one of these guys work every single day. They show up, they want to get after it, and they're also, pushing each other to be better in a good way. There's no agendas. Nobody's coming in looking for anything more than winning a World Series. And now, since the Yankees in 98 to 2000, this is something that hasn't been done right since then. So this is going to be historic. And I think the biggest thing for them is not proving if they can win 100 games. It's, can they stay healthy going into the postseason? And the other side would be, conversely, with the Red Sox, will they continue to keep winning? I don't think that's the answer. It's, are they built deep enough for October? So those two will be interesting to see if they meet up in the World Series.
So as we sit here today, and I've said that, the Dodgers, like those Yankee teams that I covered, 99, 2000, 2001, there were vulnerabilities that people don't remember. Like, history doesn't really remember, moments when they were sort of on edge. And when you look at this year's Dodger team, Edwin Diaz, their new closer, has struggled, coming back from the elbow surgery, and he's talked about his slider is not as good as he wants. Kyle Tucker's had a down year. Mookie Betts has not hit well this year. They have some starting pitchers with some injuries. I personally think their biggest question that I have about them is with their catching situation, with two guys who are both injured in Will Smith, Dalton Rushing. What's your perspective on those various vulnerabilities? What do you look at and say, boy, that one is the one for me would be the biggest concern?
Well, yeah, especially when you're looking at, in the Red Sox case, where you have Chapman on the back of the bullpen, who has a tremendous amount of postseason experience, and similarly, like on the catching side with Will Smith, who has a lot of postseason experience, trying to be able to, bridge that gap is going to be difficult, because in times of chaos, or everything's fine and dandy except for when you get behind the plate or you get on the mound and you put yourself, when I'm in that situation in the postseason, in the World Series, I don't care if you haven't done the work and you haven't practiced how you're going to play, it will show up in the postseason, because that intensity of an environment, and if you start letting things creep in, just a little bit, the cracks will start to open up and the floodgates will open, and the players who can, kind of be and we talk, everybody says it, like, who has the lowest blood pressure or the, no heartbeat in those moments, but who can play with that intensity and that relentless intensity because they've been practicing it. And I think, to your point, behind the plate is going to have to, require somebody who's going to go, hopefully they get Will Smith back, where, that will be able to calm the waters, and his in-game decisions as far as pitch calling will be something that the guys out in the mound can feel comfortable with. But again, putting the listener in that, or the fans in that environment, everybody's happy-go-lucky. As soon as the bell rings, everything changes. And can you turn that light switch on to go out there and be the ultimate competitor? Because that to me is the separator. Every pitch in the postseason is going to be equal to 2.5, possibly 3 pitches during the regular season. That's how much more intense the postseason is, and that's why I think the Dodgers have, obviously the overwhelming odds to go ahead and have this three-peat, because of that veteran presence and the experience that they have in the postseason. It really does matter.
Yeah, all those Yankee teams that I covered, that experience became a weapon for them in those big moments. All those guys who played in so many big games. I don't think there's any question about that. How the Dodgers will slow play injuries, because and they want to make sure that guys are okay for the postseason. What's your read on what's going on with Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's obviously a huge asset when he is healthy. I think the biggest thing with the knee, I think, is been concerning, especially after what was that 3 weeks ago or 2.5 weeks ago, that step on first base, and he kind of hyperextended it a little bit. But on the pitching side, I hope that he does come back and he is healthy, because if you're bringing back Snell, if you're bringing back Glass now, and then you have Skubal and Yamamoto, I mean, that's one heck of a rotation right there, and it's going to be very tough to beat. Interestingly enough, I think being able to move some of those guys into the bullpen will also be a huge asset for the Dodgers. So bringing back Ohtani is only going to strengthen that rotation, immensely. But it may give the opportunity to take one of those guys and put them in the bullpen. They may have to do that. I mean, I think that's exactly where the Red Sox are at with Garrett Crochet. Where is he going to come back and be ready? Hopefully the Red Sox continue on this run. But again, are they built for October? Crochet would give them a little bit more of that flexibility in the back end of the bullpen to be ready for a long run in October. And again, it's just everything's all up to how these guys are going to be handled for the rest of August going into September.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even mentioned Justin Robleski, who's a National League All-Star. That's how deep they are.
Yeah.
But he and, Glasnow pitched great out of the bullpen last year, so that'll certainly be a factor. I was asked on SportsCenter recently about the Dodgers culture. And I said, and I think the question was, where did it come from? And I, of course, talked about Andrew Friedman and sort of what he developed. And one of the key people I mentioned was Chase Utley, who, people wouldn't think of. I'm not in the clubhouse, but every person I talked to talked about his influence. You were there when he was there. What was the nature and why was Chase Utley so important for, what we've seen with the Dodgers for the last decade?
So his attention to detail on everything. I mean, even for me as a starting pitcher, when we played together, first of all, the impact that he had on Kike Hernandez, right? Immediately, being able to create that bond for two position players, two guys that played the infield. Kike's played every position on the field that there is. I don't know if he's caught in a game yet. I would love to see it. But for him to be able to come in and have that comfortability to just grab Kike and say, "Hey, look, I'm going to be doing some things," and none of the stuff that Chase ever did was in your face. It was always like, "Hey, come here. I want to talk to you about something. I have something for you." So right there, immediately, it was more about not pulling a player or putting him on the spot in front of the group, which is a huge leadership, check mark. And he would always talk about the team. He would talk about, we, not you, and we have to do a better job at executing pitches as a starting rotation. But again, back to the point where the attention to detail is the tipping. So for me, I had a pretty big tip out there, and he saw it right away and had me order a new glove because he said, "Your glove is too floppy," or whatever, "you need a stiffer glove. Let's order you a new glove." So immediately got on the phone, ordered a new glove. It was in, before the next start, and I was using like a brand new glove out there. But I didn't care because I was like, Chase Utley just told me that I was tipping, and this is going to help me. So, but we, everything that he did, and it goes back to, watching Derek Jeter go through his routine for the couple of months that I got to watch him in New York, and watching Chase Utley, and I think about Luis Arraez currently, right? Who is just got traded to Philadelphia. And those three guys, and I mentioned those three guys together because everything was methodical, everything had a cadence to it, and everything had a purpose to it. He led by example as a player. He also pulled guys aside, as I said before, to quietly give him their advice. And he knew what guys he could talk to and what guys that maybe wouldn't receive it as well. So I think the one thing that he's bringing is that old school perspective, to the Dodgers, but also his attention to detail is another filter for analytics. And that's a huge thing that you need when you're going into the postseason. And I think he also, in my opinion, and I felt this as well, as we get older, you have a better understanding of opposing players' weaknesses and their talents, and being able to identify those talents because of our past experiences, and being able to see this Rolodex of players and see the tendencies over and over again, or the strengths of the players, and you start grouping players into buckets. But again, it's just a huge asset for Chase Utley or any veteran player, but Chase Utley in particular in this case helps the front office evaluate just that much better, and they're always looking for that one. Everybody talks about the 1%, or we want to get 1% better. That's how you get 1% better in the postseason, because you have veteran players that have been there that can help other guys, talk to other guys, be that mentor, and that relatability breaks down walls because of the credibility that he has with the players, and that is. In my opinion, brilliant by Andrew Friedman bringing him back, and Clayton Kershaw.
Yes. And the other thing, too, is the way you're describing, because I certainly have heard about organizations where it's top down. This is the way it's done. Here's the information, versus hearing what maybe a Chase Utley could say. And I ran into Rocco Baldelli, who just started working for the Dodgers early in the year. And he told me, he said, the collaboration here is amazing. Like, he loved the collaboration with the Dodgers.
Yeah, Raul Ibanez, talking with Raul and just saying, like, I don't know, just and I love the openness of having, former players around, that it's not necessarily that everybody has to, be this Hall of Famer, but having something where it's like, oh, this guy went through something in his career. He might be able to help this player, or, this guy was, dubbed, a Hall of Famer within his first 4 years, struggled, had injuries, or, this guy found success later in his career. How do we bring all these guys together and actually, again, you break down those walls. When a former player comes in and talks to a current major league player, there is a common bond there that, you can't purchase, you can't, navigate through because of, anything else other than the authenticity for what it is. And I think that's the direction that the Dodgers have went. Everybody else has kind of gone away from hiring scouts and having the visual eyes at a Lake Point complex down in Georgia when you're watching high school players hit. Oh, we'll just read the data. Well, did you see how he reacted after he hit the home run? Did you see how he reacted after he struck out? Did you see how he reacted after he got a home run hit off him? Did you see how he reacted after he struck out the side? Because the body language is going to tell you far more than what the analytics are going to tell you. And I believe that's something that where the Dodgers are going and hiring more, scouts to be out there and visualizing and seeing the players, it's great to see. And I think it's something for a lot of the league to take note of.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason why they were in the position to make the Skubal trade, where choices like that and picking the right guys from other organizations along the lines of what you've talked about. Rich, thanks for doing this. Always great to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you, Buster. Same.
Alrighty, Buster, Bleacher Tweets for a Monday. Harry from Boston writes, I think the race for the Sox managers, for AL Manager of the Year, is between the two Sox managers, Chad Tracy and Will Venable. He says, Kevin Cash, honorable mention. What do you think about the AL Manager of the Year race?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, no question. I mean, I think, Kevin Cash, who incredibly is the dean of all managers in terms of his tenure.
I can't believe he's still around doing it.
Well, and he's great at it.
I know.
Right? He's excellent at it. And you wouldn't think like a small market manager would be around that long. But, man, he's terrific at what he does. Will Venable has had an excellent season. And I love the fact the other night, Taylor, I don't know if you saw this, but he made a mistake losing track of how many visits he had to the mound in the first game of that 3-game series against the Guardians. And he owned it. Like, there was an in-game interview, and he immediately said, yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah, that was a terrible mistake. I'm paraphrasing. But he totally owned it, which is what you want from your manager.
Wow, owning it in the in-game interview. I don't know how many other guys would do that.
No.
That's pretty
and
surprising.
Chad Tracy, like, I tweeted this out the other day. Like, he still has an interim manager tag with the Red Sox. Is there any chance he's going to be let go before the end of the season? No. So just take the interim tag off. Let him have that glory. There's a part of me that, given how, and look, I fully acknowledge that behind the scenes there might be conversations where the Red Sox have already told him, look, we're going to take care of this. We just want to focus on the season, that sort of thing. But I would assume he could be a free agent at year's end. And if the Red Sox, don't address the contract situation, he actually, tell me at the end of the year, maybe the New York Mets might not want to talk to him.
Oh my God. Yeah, he'd be the hottest free agent out there. What are they doing?
Right.
They got to peel that tag right off.
Peel the tag off, give him a contract extension. He's earned it with how they played for sure.
All right, last one here. Chuck Norris source, right? There seems to be an uptick recently in umpires not allowing ABS challenges when the challenge is asked for immediately. Him, Mark Charbonneau, Coach Sorensen all noted in the Mariners-Rays game. Julio Rodriguez called for a challenge right after a strike call, but Emil Jimenez said it was too late. What do you think about this? If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the play here.
Yeah, and I got to say, I feel like that the umpires need to understand that sometimes there's strike three calls. Like, I like the strike three calls, right? And they have the individual strike three calls. But sometimes if their strike three call physically prevents them from seeing when a hitter is challenging, they need to own that, right? That's what I felt like happened in that situation, is that he turned away from Julio. So when Julio tapped his head because he was doing his thing on the strike three call, and then he turns, oh, you didn't do it fast enough. That's because you didn't see it because you're giving your strike three call. Come on, dude. And by the way, tip of the cap to Chris Sale. I thought in that game on Saturday, it's pretty clear the umpires made a mistake by calling a balk on him, based on, how this played out. And how about Chris Sale picking up the argument on Sunday, getting ejected before the first pitch because he was yelling at the umpires like, hey, what's the deal, guys? It is, by the way, that rule that you have to declare before every batter, it is kind of stupid.
All right, there you have it. Bleacher Tweets for a Monday. We will be back on Wednesday with a special guest, Buster, a regular guest, but special in its own right for this appearance.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be talking with Carl Ravitch, who will be doing on Wednesday. We'll be doing the game broadcast from Yankee Stadium, Seattle Mariners against the New York Yankees. And as always, I look forward to talking with Carl. Thanks for watching the Baseball Tonight podcast presented by La Quinta by Wyndham. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you shine. And my thanks today to Rich Hill and to Terrence and Deli, Taylor, Mark, all the guys back in Bristol. Remember, hate and inequality based on skin color is something we need to fight against every single day.